Hi there, I'm Vlad from Ausgeknipst, and in today's video I'm going to give you a full guide on how to use your Pentax SP1000. The SP1000 is a pretty straightforward and easy to use camera that can be compared to the even more popular K1000. Both cameras can be operated fully manual, go up to shutter speeds of 1/1000th of a second, and are both easy to use. Main difference between the SP and the K1000 is that the K1000 is a bit more modern and uses K-mount lenses instead of M42 lenses. And probably the main difference is that the K1000, being a little more modern, uses through the lens metering with open aperture. This means that you don't have to step down the aperture in order to get a metering. In the manual, I'm going to show you what battery you can use with the SP1000, what lenses, and how to change the lenses, how the few buttons on this camera work, the step-down metering, how to load film into the camera, look through the viewfinder and get a correct metering and exposure, how to focus, right, taking the photo, and finally rewinding and then unloading the film. So let's get started with the battery, which is a little problematic on the Pentax SP1000. It's a pretty old camera, which means that as most of those cameras from the 70s era, it is designed to use mercury batteries, which are banned for today. A modern alternative is using such P312 hearing aid batteries together with a simple rubber O-ring as an adapter. The battery compartment is located at the bottom of the camera. Just twist it with a coin, twist it open counterclockwise. This is how the battery compartment looks. The genuine battery is a little bigger than this one, which means that this one won't last as long, but in my experience, those little batteries, they're really cheap. You get 6 of those for a couple of bucks, and they still last 3 to 6 months, depending on how often you use the camera. So those batteries are zinc air batteries, which means they have to breathe a little. Remove the sticker, so now those little holes are exposed and the battery can get some air. And after 5 minutes or so, the camera builds up its voltage and is fully functioning. The good thing with those batteries is that they offer constant and proper 1.35 volts voltage, so that you will get correct exposure using those batteries, compared to some modern alkaline batteries like those AG13s, for example, that have 1.5 volts. And be aware that those alkaline batteries won't give you correct exposure. Inside the battery, plus pole pointed to the bottom of the camera. In this case, as the camera is upside down, plus pole up. Now get a battery cap, screw it back on clockwise to tighten. Use the coin again. Got this little handy tool, 3D printed, to help with such tasks. And now we are ready to go. Before I show you how the metering works in this camera, let me show you this little lever. It's the step down plus meter activation lever. What it does is it steps down the aperture of the camera. As you see, the aperture is this little diaphragm inside of the lens. And the thing is that when you step down the aperture, for example, to f16, which is pretty closed up, less light will enter the film, and you have to compensate for that and to tell the light meter how much film is actually going to hit the light meter, which means that you have to step down to meter correctly. Modern cameras like the K1000 step down and take the metering just after the lens has been stepped down when you shoot. They have another mechanism to compensate for this. In this case, you have to step down manually and meter manually. The metering is showing inside the viewfinder, which I'll show you in a second. About the rest of the buttons and controls, you have the aperture ring here, which is located on the lens. It is a M42 mount, screw mount lens, which means you can just unscrew it. It's a very affordable. It's a lens mount which has a lot of affordable Pentax lenses as well as third-party lenses. Those are often very robust and compatible along different cameras made by Pentax and other manufacturers. Those lenses are all manual focus, obviously, as with all those SLRs. Now, screw it back on. You have a PC sync for attachment of a flash. Unfortunately, no hot or cold shoe here on the SP1000, but there is a additional cold shoe adapter which can be stuck on top of the camera. For example, if your light meter doesn't work and you want to use an external meter or use a flash with a cable. You have a film reminder here, just serves you to remind you which film you use, or if there's no film inside, you can set it to empty. This is the rewind knob, which doubles as a opening lever for the film backdoor. Viewfinder here, shutter speed dial with shutter speeds from 1 second up to 1/1000th of a second, with integrated ASA dial to set the ISO. Just pull up this collar around the shutter speed dial and turn it. Shutter button without locking option, unfortunately, and advance with integrated film counter. You also have a tripod mount at the bottom, and this is the unlock for the rewind operations. Now, as we know what all the buttons do, let me show you how to load the film. The camera uses standard 35mm film. To open the back door, just pull up this lever as I showed you before. This is also a great time to check if the light seals of the camera are intact. As with most cameras that you buy online, you have to check the light seals, and most of the time you will have to replace them, else you could get problems with light leaks. The SP needs seals at the back door hinge here and here, and also in the grooves along the back of the body. We already exchanged the seals in this camera. They go here and here. If you have bad light seals and experience light streaks or light leaks on your developed film, you can replace them on your own. We sell pre-cut seal kits together with a YouTube video that is free online that shows you the process of installing and replacing broken light seals. So now, before inserting the film, we need to check what ISO it is to tell the camera how to meter correctly for this type of film and speed of film. It is a 200 ISO film, which means I have to set the camera to 200. Pull up the collar around the shutter speed dial and set it to 200. Now the light meter of the camera knows what film I use. To insert and load the film, pull up the rewind lever once again, insert the film canister, press down the rewind lever so the film is held in place, pull the strip above the shutter and fill the film leader inside this little slit of the take-up spool. Now hold the film in place with one of your thumbs while releasing the shutter and advancing the film slowly. Let the film slide along your thumb, release, advance a couple of times until you're sure that the film is properly loaded, like it did here. Close the back door again, advance a couple more times so that the already exposed film is out of the way. You can also check now if you have properly loaded the film. If you did, the rewind spool should turn a little when you advance, like it does. And now you're ready to go. Film counter is set to 0. It automatically resets with the opening of the back door, so you don't have to worry about resetting it manually. And now you're ready to shoot. Advance, shoot. The only thing left is setting correct exposure. You already set the ISO, so you don't have to worry about that if you don't change the film. The ISO is set to 200. Now the exposure is getting set through 3 variables. The ISO, the aperture, which means the opening of the lens inside, and the shutter speed, meaning how long is the film getting exposed. As the ISO is fixed now, we just have to find a correct pair of values between shutter speed and aperture. To do so, we have to look through the viewfinder and see what the light meter that is built into this camera is telling us. Let me try and show you how it looks inside. Like this. This is how the viewfinder looks actually. As you can see, you have a meter needle and a little plus and minus sign on the right side of the viewfinder. Now what happens if I turn the shutter speed or aperture dial, and I have to now pull up the aperture step down lever, which activates the light meter. Now the needle moves, and when I turn the shutter speed or the aperture, the needle moves. Now I need to find a combination of shutter speed and aperture that makes the needle move into the center of the plus and minus sign, like this for example. Now I know that if I shoot at what I've set now is shutter speed of 1/60th of a second and f5.6, now the image will be correctly exposed. Simple as that. Of course I can also just pull up the shutter speed to 1/250 and set the aperture to f4, and I still get correct exposure. If you're not sure how to expose correctly, I recommend checking a video on the exposure triangle online. You can also focus using the viewfinder, as with most SLRs. To do so, you have a split screen in the middle of the frame, which consists out of a circle in the center, and as you can see, Let me zoom in just a little more so you can see it better. Looks like this. And now when I turn the focusing ring, like this, in the center the little black holes on my wall start to unblur. Now it's not in focus, you see double lines. I turn it, now when I don't see a split image, I know that I'm in focus. And that's basically it. Focusing and setting the exposure through the viewfinder. Okay, last thing after you've taken your photos, let me show you again. This is the aperture step down that activates the meter. This is the aperture dial. This is the shutter speed dial that I turned in order to move the needle inside the viewfinder. Now you can take your photos. Depending on what film you use, you will have 24 or 36 exposures, which you can see counted up here. As soon as you're finished, you need to unload the film. In order to do so, just press this little rewind unlock, pull up the little lever on the rewind lever, like this, and rotate it in the direction of this arrow until you don't feel any resistance. Like this. Now I heard it, how it detached from the take-up spool, and I can safely open the back door and either develop it myself or send it over to my favorite lab. Hope this video was helpful. If you have any questions how to operate the camera, please comment and I'll ask any question that I find. Other than that, consider subscribing and thanks for watching. Bye.